Well, we want you to get interactive, and many of you might have witnessed the 3-day funeral as well as burial of the late Komla Dumo. What do you make of the whole ceremony and the way Ghanaians themselves warmed up to the event and the international sympathies that the late Komla Apeke Dumo also drew just because of his passing on? And what do you make of the whole ceremony as well? So as you get interactive, please know that you have the short code 1760 to always communicate with the team here, the AM Show team. And also, we have a page on Facebook. It is Joy News on TV. As you get interactive, and would want to know if you have been experiencing some difficulty with water shortages in your area, how have you been in a position to cope? And so far, what have you been doing yourself to ameliorate your current situation? When talking about water, we have on the line the Public Relations Chief Manager of the Ghana Water Company, Michael Ajimang. A very good morning to you, Mr. Ajimang. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, thanks for speaking to us for the morning. Now, particularly, have you been in a position to resolve the difficulties that the residents or the areas that have faced the shortages over the last few days?
We have now, as we speak, we have finished with the work on the Wager line. You know, over the past 1 week, we had problems there. There was leakages. So, but we resolved it since Friday. Saturday we started pumping. So as we talk now, water is flowing to the city over the western part of Accra particularly.
And since we know that many of those areas in the western parts of the capital have had or have gone through these torrid times, we still have gotten reports from reporters that there seem to be some areas which still have not gotten supplies yet. What could be accounting for that?
You know, once we started, water flow is such that it would take time for it to get to everywhere. Some areas are on the scale, some are in low-lying areas. So normally when they start like this, you have the low-lying areas getting set. Before it builds up, you have enough pressure for it to flow to the hilly areas. So we are monitoring the situation. We hope that so many areas are getting up. Also gotten reports. Areas like Kolebu, Bawi, and the rest, they are all getting. Where I stay here, Roman Ridge, water has started flowing. In fact, for 1 week now, we haven't got water, but this morning I've realized it's flowing. So we are monitoring. I hope that by the close of days, everybody in those areas.
If you monitored reports in the last couple of days, you get to find out that many residents in the capital were having a hard time getting access to the resource. Now, if you knew that you had problems with your lines and some level of rehabilitation would be ongoing, why didn't you make enough provisions? Not as if you didn't make any provisions at all. Why didn't you make enough provisions to make sure these shortfalls were mitigated?
But, the problem that happened at Wager, or Awusi Junction precisely, was unforeseen. But when pipe leakage, you can never foretell, because what I even took from people there, the line is relatively young. It was new. It was just laid some 4 years ago as part of this NY highway project. But nobody expected that it would give way. But that is it. The T, it's a junction. It's actually a junction between two pipes. It's a T, what we call a T. So that place gave way. So it's not as if we foresaw what was coming. It came accidentally, and that was why we were somehow prepared. But, we rose up to the task. When it happens like that, the only thing that we have to do is to shut down the plant, because the volumes of water that was coming was too much. You can't just contain it, so you have to shut it down. Let the whole thing go dry before we can mend it. So that is precisely what we have done. But if you ask, it came suddenly, it was unforeseen, and nobody had expected it.
And we still had not enough supplies to residents in terms of whether water tanker supplies or other makeshift supply avenues within the period.
as I'm saying now, the reports that we are getting are telling us that the pressures are building up, and most areas are getting. As I said, look at Kolibri is far away from Wija, but water has flown to that area. Where I stay, Roman is very far, but water has started flowing. So we ensure that a lot of places are getting. I actually called this morning, Bawe, this Maryland, Tansuma, and the rest. They are all getting water. So those who are not getting, perhaps, as I'm saying, the pressures are building. Once they are building up, pressures are building up, perhaps to get to all those areas. Most times, as I said, low-lying areas will get first before it flows to the upland ones. And we are just hoping. But God, that our lands are open, we want those who are not getting to get to us. You see, you'll be surprised that sometimes when such occur, you have people even fiddling or with our back. We just go, people go and play with it. They turn it. Just because in terms of strategy, some of them are thinking that when they turn the valve, the water might flow. So they will leave it on like that, and then we may have to go back to all those areas which are not getting to check our lines to see whether people have tampered with our valves. But we are hoping that everybody will get. The situation is stabilizing, and there's no cause for alarm.
Okay, Ms. Ajimai, given that these excuses you're giving are forthright, would you say that perhaps you will be in a better position to preempt such occurrences in the future? Not necessarily the best pipelines or the leakages, but trying to make sure that these shortfalls in supply will be augmented when we have such difficulties. So areas wouldn't have to go queue in certain areas in faraway places to get access.
We see, I'm hoping we are in that position. You see, what happened was that this problem happened just close to the treatment plant, and it's actually a main transmission line. Don't forget, it's some 36 inch or 3 feet diameter, something very big one. And that is the main transmission line that carries water. So when such leakages happen on such lines, then you have no option. But if it's just some minor lines, some service lines, some 16, some smaller lines, and that's why we have just blank off that area alone. But this one was the main line that it was carrying water from Wija. So in such a situation, you find it very difficult to deal with it. If you don't shut up the whole treatment plant, you are not going to be able to mend the line. So we are hoping, but as I said, most of these lines are very new. It's not that some people were actually thinking that they are old lines that are giving way. They are very new lines, but then that is it. That is the hardware for you, engineering for you. Sometimes you can't predict.
And over the period, you've been at the receiving end of a barrage of criticism from the public. Is that why you decided to postpone perhaps the timeline you had initially announced to the public for any type of rehabilitation you would have undertaken at the Pond Water Treatment Plant or Headworks?
No, we see what we had at the time that we announced the shutdown of the plant shutdown of Pond, we didn't anticipate this problem occurring. And don't forget, we are actually hoping that the whole shutdown of when we shut down Pond, we are going to depend on water flow from Wija to feed the eastern part of the plant. So what was happening is that now that the problem occurred, then we need to monitor, look at the situation, see whether everything has stabilized, whether there won't be any fault again, whether pressures will build up enough to flow to all those areas, whether we'll be able to fill our reservoirs and the rest, make them ready for people to get water when we shut down the plant. So we need time to do all these things, to monitor, to look at, and then put everything in place before we start. Because without that, what it means is that if we are not careful and then it's really okay, then we will be in a very difficult situation. But so now we want to make sure it stabilizes well enough so that there won't be any mishap. So when that happens, then we can go ahead. That's why we have now asked for rescheduling of the whole program. That is the whole idea, so that people will not go through extreme hardship. And then we will be very, very 100% confident that the things will.
Okay, and before I let you go, though, so do I get the understanding that the 27th of February, which you have now scheduled the closure of the treatment plan at home for your rehabilitation activity, could also result in a lot more acute water shortage situations in the capital and elsewhere in Tema?
Oh, no, not necessarily. Don't forget, Accra here, we are already living on a rationing regime.
Well, we do understand, because this one is only a best pipeline that took you unawares, and even you're just a small one, you're having difficulty. And if you shut a whole treatment plant, it means you're going to have a lot more difficulty. I mean, if I go by that very logic, would I be right?
No, but don't forget, when even wager went up, the eastern part, Tema, and all those that are served by the country treatment plant, they were getting their water all right. It's not as if every place in Accra was without water. We're getting it in the eastern part, mostly Tema and all those areas, and even to the payment Akwabo Hills. But so what is happening now is that the position is changing. We are moving to the eastern part. But if we shut that part, water coming to the eastern part, water will be flowing through the western part. The Wager one will be working well, and then don't forget it gets as well when Wager gives the water all the way down to the ministry, central part of Accra, even to Roman Hill and Billington and all those areas. So what we are looking at doing is getting our reservoirs all filled up. As told you, we have a booster station at Opongro. Then we have a reservoir at Marfor, or 37 Military Hospital. We are going to fill all these places up with water. And then when that is done, we know for that short period, the 3 days or 4 days, it will be enough. We will be also placing all our impact tankers. And then we have even going into a lot of them. We rely on other agencies which have all these tankers. And we have already actually sent out announcements for key institutions, the industries to store enough water. Don't forget the breweries and the rest, they have storage reservoirs, storage facilities that they can store even up to 1 week. So we are hopeful that once the awareness has been created, all this will be in place so the impact will not be felt at all. We are going to serve the people where we are mobilizing, and we have all the contingency plans ready for us to move ahead.
Okay. Do you usually have a lot more dialogue with the coalition of NGOs in water and sanitation, CONIWAS?
We do. CONIWAS, we are always, but you'll be surprised that they are even on most of our committees, agencies, and the rest. So we are always meeting with them. I know all of them. We are always meeting, and then we share ideas. I know Bernata and the rest. That is what we are talking then about. So we know all of them, and then we dialogue with them from time to time. Consumer agency or whatever.
But do you agree with the CONIWAS concerns over the last couple of years that perhaps not enough investments have been made in as far as replacement of perhaps old systems for you as well, and your readiness to be able to tackle all emergencies?
Yeah, we agree. We share that view too. We know, but our problems are many. It's investment, yes, and others too. So, but as I said, we were late, and but now I'm grateful to say that we have been getting a lot of money. So as I speak now, we have about 20, but I might even say about 25 projects running. The government has funded money, and we are taking all these projects. In Accra here, we have about 4 projects that are running as I speak, with investment that has come in from government help. And to mention Pond specifically, we have the Pond expansion project that will give us 40 million gallons of water every day, and then that is going to help us solve the problems at Gardenta. Medina, Ashoma, all those areas that are without water. By December, this project will be completed.
Okay.
Then where even the pond shut down is also due to the fact that we have another project there, ASMA, or what we call Accra Tema Metropolitan Area Rural Water Supply, that is going to water to Pram, Michel Camp, Afienya, all those lines to even Spenya, down to Adukuru, Makopon, then it will come through to Aburi. This project is what is forcing us to actually shut down the pump plant so that we can actually link a new pipeline, that is transmission line, a raw water transmission line that they are laying to the existing one that is there. So that when that is done, this project within the next 2 months it will be handed over. We will finish with that project.
Okay.
And that will also give us about 9.2 million gallons of water every day. Even at that same place, let me just put it, there's another one, 3.3 million gallon project, which we call pond intake rehabilitation. It's also related to this one. We are changing all the old pumps and then we're installing new ones. So as part of the pond shutdown, we will take that opportunity to install this one. So I agree that investment is not being, we are lacking in terms of funding, but as I talk now, we have a lot of projects going all over the country.
Okay. I've been told by my producer that you have a lot of time, so just stay on the line for us. You're willing to do that, aren't you?
Okay.
Okay, because we have the gentleman you mentioned his name in the studio, Benjamin Arthur from Cornewall, and Cornewall is the...
Good morning to him for me.
Okay, sir, it's a good morning. Is your friend, right?
Good morning, Mr. Ajman. Okay. How are you?
Okay, if you work with them frequently, why then do you raise concerns about not enough efforts being made, one, to deal with emergencies, and also replacing old, not only machinery, but also perhaps the pipelines that will be used for water conveyance in the country?
Thank you, and pleasure having me here. If, yes, we work with them, we've been on some of their committees and making input into some of the things that they are doing. Yes, I mean, they have their sector or strategic investment plan, which requires an annual investment to be made. They receive some investment, but you ask, is it up to the limit that they want? They are doing around 40–50% of the investment required. I mean, so
you're saying it's not their fault?
Yes, I mean, it's the government who has to bring in the investment because by their by their act, they're not supposed to go in for those kind of loans that will enable them. So it's the government is the main shareholder who is supposed to bring in the required investment, and therefore if the government is not making investment, the effort in doing that, then definitely we're going to have that challenge. We appreciate the fact that for the past few years there's some level of investment, especially at the headworks and the main lines, but I think what we're looking at is when the headworks have been done, when those things have been done, what is bringing the water from the main lines to the residential areas? Some of these pipelines were laid, I mean, in the 60s, we have not been changed. So that's why you see frequent bursts in pipelines in some of these areas. They are old to the extent that a little increase in pressure creates problem. So this is what we're calling for. Yes, they've done some investment at the headworks.
But you feel that state intervention as far as investment is concerned in Ghana Water should be a lot more than... It should
a lot more than... I mean, they have their own strategic investment plan and government knows what they want every year.
Okay. Mr. Ajiman, then it suffices for the conclusion to be drawn that you are just hiding behind all these excuses to be perhaps inefficient also when you are confronted with such difficulties. Even just like the recent one you just had, an emergency you didn't even envisage.
No, as I told you, within the pipeline that we are talking about, the one that the emergency that we had, I told you it's relatively new. It was laid just some years ago, but it has happened. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not always the case that perhaps when you have new installations in place, the things will work on smoothly. There are times that these things are bound to happen. So don't actually say that we are inefficient. These pipelines are on the ground. The water flows with a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. And there are times, often you are bound to have the difficulty when there will be leakages here and there. But as he has actually indicated, the last few years, we have realized that the momentum of investment has increased. In fact, and we are hoping that looking at the strategic investment plan that he alluded to, the government will go ahead and help us get more investment. But as I said, most of the projects that we are undertaking, most of them will be completed by the close of the year, early next year. Most of them will come up. And you see that we are doing a lot all over the place. I know with the greatest problem that we have is in Accra here, but I'm very hopeful that with all the projects coming on stream, the big one that is coming, there's even this one, the Tessie desalination plant that is being undertaken by through a build, own, operate system. And then this one, the Accra Metropolitan Area project that is leading to the shutdown of the pond treatment plant. When all these projects are completed, I know for sure that the people of Accra next year will be smiling all over.
That's good PR talk, is that not it? When do you, Mr. Ajiman, when do you intend implementing that proposal you put in the public domain a couple of weeks ago about putting in place or introducing metering system for water?
Oh, that's one we as I said, we know for ourselves, people just blew that kind of statement. We were just saying that it was just going to be a pilot one, and that it's not as if it's going to be implemented now. We're taking our time to look at it. People like Mr. Atta, they will all be involved. We are looking at it. And
well, he's against it. I think he's smiling here. I'm sure quite sarcastically.
It's due to misunderstanding. When we keep on talking, we are going to engage him and his group. When we keep on talking, perhaps by the time it comes on. But as I said, nobody should just look at it as a failure, something that has been done. We are looking at it. We are still as a proposal. And then we even my managing director, when he said by the end of the year. And we are looking at the situation where by that time, perhaps we have enough water. At the moment, we are confronted with no water. But we are hoping that when everything stabilizes, when we get all our projects in Accra here completed, when the water starts flowing and people are happy, that is when perhaps the project will come on.
Okay. Thank you very much. Michael Ajiman is the Chief Manager for Public Relations, Ghana Water Company Limited. Now we continue our discussions in the studio with Benjamin Atta. He is with the Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation. Now, particularly when you have the water company coming to give all these excuses about the lack of investment, etc., it also gives indication to the public that the concerns they have due to the problems they keep having, even when there are no shortages, are real and they need to be dealt with.
Yes, I agree to some extent, but you also have a situation where everything is not investment, because you can put in the required investment, but issues of management is very critical.
Do you think these are problems that we're experiencing currently?
Yes.
How do you do that conclusion?
The issue, fine, it was an unexpected, unanticipated problem, but what has been the mechanism internally to deal with such problem whenever it arises? Because they should have in their system how they deal with some of these emergencies with some backup funding, set it somewhere untouchable, so that as soon as it happens, you rush in to deal with it. But if you've not prepared yourself by the nature of your business, because you should be able to do your risk analysis and see where some of this risk will occur and how you react to it. If you have not prepared for all these emergencies, then whenever it happens, then you find yourself in the problem that situation that we find ourselves today.
Now, in such a situation, for example, we had shortages as a result of that broken down or burst pipe. We're being told 36 meters or something in diameter, etc. Now, if that occurs, you as a coalition, what do you usually do in that? What type of advocacy do you undertake at all?
For us, I don't think we want to play it to the extent that it's their fault. It's their fault to the extent that if their internal mechanisms in terms of responding to the emergency is not effective, then that's where we'll come in, that they probably have to review their internal mechanism. Then also in respect of how they meet the customers or the public demand, especially in places where they are not having service, because we heard that they are bringing a backup system in terms of bringing in tanks to supply for some of these places. How has that been effective? Have people received the water? So this is where we will come in and say probably...
And did you come in? Because clearly there were areas that were not receiving those emergency supplies.
Yes, as at Friday, that is where we had the minister with this backup, this thing. But up to this morning, we've not monitored to see whether people have received what the minister tried to inform us.
He told us that now they've restored flow, and so if the pressure is adequate, then I guess supply will reach where usually they get the supplies. Now, let's look at the investment that is needed in the water sector in Ghana. In the next 5 years, how much do we need?
On the average, I think we're looking at around $100 million a year on the average for Ghana Water alone to be able to reach a certain...
That is urban water
supply.
For urban water
supply. The urban water supply, to reach the level that they need to reach. Don't also forget that issues of population growth and all these things have to be factored in. But if we are doing around 40-50 million a year, then it definitely will have a gap to fill. Internally, well, they are telling us that what they are generating in terms of revenue is not enough.
What percentage?
I think they're doing about 70-80% of the internal revenue that they require, which is coming from the tariff that people are paying. Our concern has been that anytime you see an increase in revenue, it comes at the back of increase in tariff, which means if you don't have increase in tariff, you don't have any mechanism internally to reduce costs, because increase in revenue is not only by increase in tariff. You should also looking at internally what you can do.
So what can they do?
To save, I mean, we all know in the first place that from their records, that about the 48% of the water they're producing, I mean, cannot be accounted for non-revenue water. Then also, go waste. And out of that, about 50-55% is due to what they call commercial losses, which means pipe-based, illegal connection. And these are the areas that they should be tackling, because if they could reduce between 2 to 5% of this non-revenue, it will to bring in additional equivalent of around 15 million Ghana cedis a year, which is not bad. So why wouldn't you put in that extra effort to reduce? And for the past 10-15 years, we still are confronted with the issue of non-revenue water.
We're in 2014. If I remember vividly, for the last 8 years, consistently, the Ghana Water Company have been saying to the public, also made efforts. They have a loss sampling control unit, for example, trying to mitigate against some of these inadequacies or inefficiencies that you have identified in the system. Why are we still not making inroads?
It means those things are not working. So they have to go back and rethink. I mean, I've been around my office area. We have a pipeline. I don't know how it got to be laid in a gutter, but it's an old pipeline, which based for 3-4 months. I have personally been in their office. Some of their offices are slammed down. Then finally, a gentleman came about a month ago, and he's saying that is an old system. He doesn't have the tools to deal with. And you are aware, people are complaining. There's a pipe burst here. You call in the toll-free number, you don't even get it. It doesn't go through. So these are the little other things in terms of efficiency, in terms of effectiveness. That is where we think the cost reduction mechanism should be strengthened.
So you think that internally perhaps the priorities are not well laid out?
Well, you can say so, but we think it goes beyond that. Because let's look at the system. Just last year, they used to have a two system, Ghana Water Company, Ghana Urban Water Limited. It has been merged as Ghana Water Company Limited as a whole. And they are trying to look at the governance element which goes with the management. And there was a committee, as he said, which made recommendation that the board has to be reconstituted, and apart from that, they should go. One of the challenges I think they have faced is the dual responsibility, because the government appoint the board and at the same time appoint the MD. So it makes, the management in terms of governance a big issue.
I don't get you. An MD is appointed by is it vested in which body? Is it the presidency?
Yes.
Okay. And then
who do you respond to? You have the board sitting here, the MD sitting here. Both are appointed by the president or the minister.
No, but that is why the board has been appointed, and so the MD is supposed to be responsible for the board. Is that not what happens in any corporate institution, private or public?
In a typical private, you constitute the board, and the board employs the management. So the management is responsible to the board. So when it comes to performance and everything, it's the board which assess the performance of MD based on certain criteria.
Well, there's a quasi-state institution, so
fine. That is why we find ourselves in some of these institutions, because in case of Ghana Water, they will tell you, before it was emerged, the board for Ghana Water for some time had not been met. You see, so the issue of governance, we have to look to seriously, and to the extent that the governance respond to the top, not to people downward. That is why if there is a complaint, you don't get the result, you don't get the answers. Because that's why I received my appointment letter. I have to respond if minister called me, if a president, that is where we respond to. But we want to see a situation where they are not only accountable to the top, but also accountable to the people who are contributing to pay to the revenue of the corporation.
So the coalition of NGOs in water and sanitation, you feel that as far as corporate governance issues are concerned, some level of reforms will also need to be undertaken?
In fact, it has been undertaken. It needs to be implemented to the extent that you're looking at a big organization like Ghana Water. Most of the MDs have been acting for how many years? So these are some of the things that we were looking at, and we know the government put up a committee, and part of the committee recommendation is to institutionalize implement their recommendation, which including appointing new board, allowing the board to recruit a management for the organization, and introduce performance management system down the ladder, so that people could be held accountable. Because if you are responsible for area A and you are not working to meet the performance that has been set, agree with you, then you have to account for what you've been doing. So these are some of the issues we think. It goes beyond investment, because you can put in the investment, go beyond what the investment requires. But if you don't have the effective and efficient management system in place, then you'll be throwing away the investment that you are putting in.
Do you think that there's the commitment from the owners of the company, the state, the public, so to speak, and these decisions are taken by the executive, to make sure that these reforms are implemented and thereby bring in a lot more efficiency?
Yeah, to the extent that the government on its own or in collaboration with its partners brought in or instituted this committee to look at this reform, and to the extent that they started implementing part of this reform, because the merging of Ghana Urban Water and Ghana Water Company as one was part of the recommendation. So to the extent that government has taken that step and it's also bringing in some level of investment. We could say that it's committed. But as to the downstream activities in terms of making it more efficient, making it some level of autonomy to take its own decision as to how they want to push things, we think that area, the government is a bit lacking.
Okay. A company that is solely focused on peri-urban or urban water supply then needs to have a plan. With your interaction, do you think that the current plan they have for medium to long-term water provision for urban communities is the real deal for them to deal with the current problems that is engulfing water supply in urban communities in Ghana?
Yeah, to some extent, we think the plan is okay, but I have sat on one of the committee which also asking for them to review the plan to meet the current demands and the current issue. Fine, Mr. Ajman was talking about the fact that they are bringing water from Pong and in that large quantity. You could also realize, if you have passed that road recently, you could also realize, you could also have seen that from Pong to Adenta, there is serious development in terms of building. So if we also don't take care in the investment, then you could see that by the time we even finish bringing the water, those along the line that way may have even taken half or a third of the issue of...
You're talking about population increase.
Population increase.
Okay.
So we know they have some investment strategy there, and there's also a need for them to relook at this investment strategy to meet the current and the future demands of the company.
Now, let's deal with issues of supply in communities. And if we have inefficiencies in supply systems, and we also have identified that there are gaps due to illegal connections, etc., are you satisfied, usually when you interact with a water company, effort to make sure they nip all these difficulties in the bud?
It's the effort that we are not satisfied in terms of...
despite having a loss and control unit?
Yes, I mean, as I said, and people will tell you the response from this community, from this control unit. And if you should open a phone line, people will call and tell you there's a pipe burst here. I have called several times. I'm not getting the people. I'm not getting the response. It's not me who will talk about it. But we think the issue of community involvement is very critical if we have to do away with illegal connection. To what extent have they involved the communities to be watchdog in terms of education, in terms of awareness raising? I mean, we have worked with them in some communities which they have had interface with the community and have come to some agreement, even to the extent and the time that the community will receive their water supply, and the community forming watchdog to look at those who are siphoning water. I mean, we've done some work in the Teshi area, we've done some work in the...
You've piloted such.
I mean,
and it
with
works.
Them.
That people within, or residents or inhabitants within a certain community will report their kind?
Yes, will report their kind. Because they realize that if it is siphoned upstream, they don't get those downstream don't get.
So you are saying that it's only in situations where we have the topo, having upstream and downstream, that's when we're going to have reports of neighbors who perhaps are siphoning water.
Yes.
So it means it can't work for every part of urban communities.
It could work for every part of the urban community.
Because it's not every place that is an up and low lying area.
It's not up and low lying.
Some could very flat plateaus.
Yes. What I use the upstream and to refer to is those who are at the side where the pressure is okay.
I know.
And
I know.
More water.
I know what you mean.
Because you have a situation where even people who are selling, who are using the vendors, are siphoning straight into their tanks in their house. And there are community people who are aware because they go there to buy the water. But they can't talk about it. Such people need capacity, need understanding that, look, when this person is doing this, these are the likely effects. Because one, as soon as the person starts accessing the water, those of you beyond that point, you will not get water. So what do? Would you like to go and buy it at a higher price than the lower price that you get when you get the direct access. So that is where we think the education and awareness at the community level should be approached, so that together the communities will be willing to help them. Then we also have a situation where, when you have informed them, then there's somebody, it is these people who are bringing the information, then those are the trust. So they need to build the trust with the communities in implementing some of these strategies. And
confidentiality as well.
Confidentiality. I mean, if the trust is there, it means that
there will be confidentiality.
Because in Teshi and La, we have some wash groups who are doing other things apart from water. And they have met Ghana Water team there several times to discuss some of these issues and agree on things that they should be doing. And it's working well for them. So I think we can extend it to other areas, because if 2 or 3 people decide to siphon that volume, the bottom line, you have to go and buy it at higher prices from these people. So it's better for all of us to have some access than one person having access and feeding on us. So for us, that is how we think the approach at the community in the urban centers should be looked at. Because it reaches a certain point where the pressure is low. I've been hearing that, I don't know how far true, I've been hearing that even in some places where the pressure is low, people could use boosters.
You've been hearing, or
I've been hearing, I've not seen it.
You've never seen it before?
I've never seen it. So I can't say whether it's working or...
I've seen it before.
Oh, okay. If that is the situation, I mean, the community members are there, they are aware that this is happening. Is it legal? Why can't they raise the issue? So we need also to build that confidence, that trust, and work with the community to be able to deal with this situation.
Let's look at the issue of pricing, because it's an issue that has always dominated the discussions when it comes to this very utility. Do you think that the way the argument has always been going, and now we're even talking about metering, is the best way to go?
We are not against pricing for pricing sake. We want to increase price because that is where it's a revenue generating mechanism. But we are saying, before you do that, look internally. This non-revenue water that we're talking about, and if it can bring in more revenue, some level of revenue, then you can talk of increasing price. But these basic things that we're supposed to do, if we are not doing it, and always want to feed on increasing price as a mechanism to increase revenue, then we have a problem with that. So it's not an issue of we don't want them to have the correct or the right price, because technically, as we sit now, those who don't have access, the communities and the people who don't have access and are buying from the secondary and the tertiary suppliers, are paying more than those who have direct access. So those who buy from the tankers, those who buy in buckets, are paying higher prices than those who
have the supply at home.
At home, yes.
Wherever.
Yes.
Why?
Because it's cheaper.
Because they are secondary.
Yes, so somebody go and buy. They get
secondary access.
Access.
Okay.
And the tanker service we put on it.
How do we make sure that we create direct access then?
That's what I said, that they are bringing the water from the pond, wager, to a certain point. The next level of investment or the next activity that we require is to bring it closer to our homes, which means in some areas they have to actually change the pipelines, lay new pipelines, make extension into these places, these newly developed places. They have to extend pipe to those places. In some of our built-up areas, Teshi, Malam, Nima, those places, I mean, the pipelines, where are they? So we have to bring the pipeline close to these people so that they can have direct access. It's cheaper to have direct access. And when you talk of the tariff increase, anytime there's a tariff increase, it means the secondary providers are also going to increase their tariff. So at the end of the day, the consumer is going to buy from the secondary and the tertiary providers are going to have this challenge. So the issue is not actually tariff increase. It's how we manage the access, because it becomes relatively cheaper for those who have direct access than those who have to buy for secondary and tertiary providers.
Granted, we have investments in the right manner, through the right modus operandi. They are very consistent. These allocations are coming on. Do you think we have enough sources to create enough supply points?
Enough sources in terms of?
Well, the sources for getting water.
I think the raw water, as that is...
yes, raw water.
Yes. I don't think we have much problem in terms of the raw water.
So where we have the difficulty
is taking the water, treating the water, the distribution. That is where we have the challenge. Distribution. And as Mr. Ajiman said, from the past few years, we've seen a lot of investment at the hard work, taking the raw water, treating it. I don't think we'll have much problem there. The issue is after treating and bringing it to a certain level, distributing it to our communities is where we have the challenge.
So do I have the feeling that despite all the investment that could be made, and as consistently stated in whatever perhaps the plans that they have as a company, we could still come to square one, where perhaps the distribution is not done properly, and there are still leakages, and there are still mass connections, and so the supply points will not get to the residents.
To the residents.
You're painting a very gloomy picture there.
Not necessarily a gloomy picture, but that is the situation that we're going to have our hands.
That's the reality.
If we invest more at the headworks, as we're doing now, when you bring the water, where does it go? Where will it go? If you don't have the distribution closer to the homes, where are you going to? Who is going to access? It means you will be staying in the main pipelines. So we need additional investment to work on the distribution lines. I'll talk to some of our colleagues in Central Region. Some of the pipelines, 40, 60 years, they've not changed. So such a pipeline, the diameter and the standard is not what is required for today. So the quantum of even the water that you want to pass through such a pipeline is going to be a problem. So such pipelines have to be replaced and requires investment. So yes, we're doing well in terms of the headworks and the major pipelines. But for the distribution, that's where we're going to have a serious challenge.
You're talking about not enough pipelines, or perhaps not enough foundational infrastructure. And then you're also talking about increased population. Are you happy as a coalition of NGOs about access to relatively new and expanding areas?
We are not happy because those, but you see, it's also come.
For example, somebody built somewhere in Community 25 but can't get access to normal.
It also comes with our nature of planning. Those who are building in Community 25, before they started planning...
I just use that as an example, so let's not. Next time they'll be calling us.
Let Community Z. Before they started putting up the buildings, their infrastructure, their road, how has been the involvement of Ghana Water? You don't build before you go and ask them. Because they also have their plans, they have the way they want to progress in the implementation of their plans. And therefore, if from day one, you cited your location and started building, and usually some of these places, it starts with one person's block. Then the pipeline is about half a mile away. Then the person, because he or she needs water, will not even involve Ghana Water, but will go and get their staff behind this thing to go and lay their pipes. So even by the time you are building their house, their plans, they've not even reached there. They don't even know, because you have a situation where the town and country plan is doing its own thing. The building, people are doing their own thing. The individuals, because we also need these facilities, we are doing our own thing. There's not that collaborative effort between these planning entities and the service providers to bring in all these things together as one. So I think, yes, they have their plans. But before these new areas start developing, there should be service plots and all those things that we talk about. But to what extent do they involve Ghana Water in the planning and
so do
zoning
you work with some of these real estate agencies?
We've not actually worked
So those should be the new inroads that you should be making then?
Yes, but what we're actually working in talking about in terms of service provision, especially in terms of revenue, because we realize some of these areas too, they are not able, where they even have access, they're not even able to collect. Is it possible in some of these what we call the gated communities for them to give them bulk supply?
Meaning what?
Meaning, like in this area, there is one access point, so that they say, those of you living there will give you water into this tank, manage it.
Like in reservoirs, huge
reservoir.
Huge preservation.
We will sell you, we need one check at the end of the month. So is it possible for you to form a kind of, or get somebody to manage, you get the distribution?
So those are things that you are thinking about?
Yes. And for it, I think...
How would that reduce mass access? Or ensure mass access?
People are aware that within 2 or 3 days, you have agreed with them that within two days in a week, they will get water. And therefore, they are... The issue there is not actually on the access, it's efficiency in management. Because if they don't have access in the first place, then we can't even bring in that introduce that element. But what we are trying to say is that in some of these newly developed communities where they have access, instead of worrying themselves, sending people to go for bailing and all those things, is it possible for them to have a kind of management system where the people buy the water in bulk, distribute it among themselves, bill themselves? At the end of the day, Ghana Water takes a check instead of individual housing units paying there. So these are some of the things we're trying to... they themselves, I think, are thought about it, but it's also left with the implementation.
Okay, we have to take news on the hour. When we come back, we'll come and wrap up discussions on subject of talk for the morning. We're discussing water, the current shortages we have, and we're talking to the Executive Director for the Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation, Benjamin Arthur. And I just have to ask you one more question. What's your own view about the whole contribution to make sure that we have a metering system for water? Just give me a minute outside, and then we can wrap up.
Interestingly, our informal checks have even revealed that it was just mentioned in the passing from there, and they have not actually sat down to talk to
it's not policy direction
yet.
Because
we also talked to PURC and said as far as they're concerned, they've not even seen anything from Ghana Water Company Limited.
So the media picked it up. Okay, so that'll be it for the morning. And thanks for joining us, Benjamin Arthur. He is with the Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation. We've been looking at water crisis and the need to improve access to a lot more communities in the medium to long term. Now let's do the latest headline news we have on the hour.